All right, Preds Power Hour on a Friday afternoon. You know what that means. That means Brian Bastin on the Forecheck.com is here. Brian, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Pretty good. Seems like we just talked.
It does seem suspiciously like we just did a Preds pod in less than 48 hours ago. But
That's right.
Things have changed. When we last talked, the Preds were on a very depressing losing streak. And since then, the Preds are on a one-game winning streak. And many are saying that Charlie Burris turning his attention elsewhere last night to a Waffle House run, all kinds of other things outside of watching the Preds was the difference. So Charlie, welcome to the program. And unfortunately, Brian and I have collectively decided as a 2-3 rule, you were not allowed to watch the Preds until they lose another hockey game.
That's
Actually,
fair enough.
I'll amend that. You have to go to Waffle House too.
There you go.
I might come back a few pounds heavier if that's going to be the case, because the Waffle House last night was excellent. It's the first time I've been there in like years and years and years. We just did it. We did it on a total whim, just me and my wife. And
I could eat
it's
Waffle
hard
House
to
for
beat.
breakfast every single day. I
Oh
never
my
get tired
gosh.
of it.
It's like so good for your soul, like everything about it. Even the people that work there, they're always
Oh
like,
yeah.
they're like your weird relatives that you're like, yeah, they're pretty crazy, but like they're awesome. Like it's just so great.
Yeah, when I was an undergrad up in Pep and Powell, we used to go to the Waffle House before finals, and we get there like 7 p.m. We get dinner, we get a pot of coffee, and study there all night and just drink coffee, have breakfast in the morning, then go take finals. Don't recommend doing that, kids, but
do as I say, not as I do. But I didn't watch the game, and I'm angry at the Predators because I was planning to come on here and lay down some of the hottest takes these airwaves have ever heard. And they took that power away from me because they suddenly won by like a good margin last night. And I'm not happy about it. I'm not happy that they won and took away my talking points. So,
well, let's zap the memory of what they did last night, Charlie, and let's get how you would have done it before last night. Let's pretend you don't know the result.
I'm interested. Here we go.
I mean, it just fed into every thought that I've had about John Hines and the way that this team is built, where I just said, like, in fact, it was even worse because I really thought, I was like, yeah, it's not that bad. They're just kind of middling. And then they came out in those games and got blasted by the Stars and just I was embarrassed essentially. And I'm already somebody who has Hines skating on real thin ice, pun intended.
Very good.
And I just was not happy to see that at all, because what you saw last night, you saw that this team has dudes, and you saw that they can play up when they want to, or whatever, however you want to diagnose them suddenly, winning a game by 4 goals. But yeah, it's just really frustrating because it feels like they're just not getting the most out of this team. I don't know that however many games in at this point, 6 or whatever games into the season, I'm going to be like, fire John Hines. I already did that last season. That still kind of stands.
Right.
But I was very unhappy just in general, where I was just like, is this really how the season's going to be? We're just, you're playing the teams in your division and just getting your ass kicked. That's just that's the whole game. I mean, what else are you supposed to, that's how you make the playoffs and how you do anything of significance in the NHL, and they're getting whipped. So, but we'll see. Now, I'll have to not watch every game from the Waffle House, and we'll see how things turn out.
What's your Waffle House order?
So it really depends. If I'm eating the full meal, I am a true, like, I don't ever get like actual dinner food from there. It's the All-Star. You just go the full bore, get a little bit of everything. But like last night, all was just, I believe it's smothered and covered, right? Onions, cheese, hash browns. Nice and simple, and it just has the one square of cheese right in the middle, and that square of cheese is the best cheese you've ever tasted when it's 1 a.m. It's too good.
apologies to the good folks who are now quite hungry listening to the podcast and not eaten today. That was not our
You've
intention.
informed my one of my meal decisions this weekend with the kids. So
There you go.
thank you.
Brian,
Yeah.
what's your go-to order? What's your
so
Waffle House
cheap
order?
too?
Oh yeah, the cheapest is easy. It's the 2-egg breakfast over easy, white toast, hash brown smothered and covered, extra order of bacon fried crispy. So yeah, it's been a while. I don't go nearly as much as I used to. I've probably been 5 or 6 in the last year or so, but it's the same. I mean, sometimes I switch it up. I do the all-star. I'm not a big waffle person, ironically, but sometimes you just need like a big sloppy breakfast, and it's gonna be quick. Everybody's gonna be nice. You can put on whatever music you want, and you can annoy everybody in there. Like I tend to do it every time I go in there. So because sometimes you just want to hear me sing Reba McEntire at like 7 a.m. So before I go to work. So you never know.
How is Monarch going, Brian? Like, is everything going haywire on the ABC, or is it Fox network drama starring Reba McEntire? Isn't it called Monarch? It's like Yellowstone for local.
Oh, I don't know. I actually didn't know much about it, and it's funny because I live about 2 or 3 miles away from where she used to. She had a big plot of land and a bunch of buildings over there. So, but yeah, no, I don't. Unfortunately, I'm not a big of a Reba fan as I should be, and that's something that's on me. Yeah, she's
Reba
awesome.
We're pro Reba, pro Dolly here on this program.
See, and I tell you, it took us a little while, but we're truly part of the Nashville media now because we have managed to make this hockey talk about country music. And again, my fault. I'm the one who's usually like, "Come on, guys." So, but we're there now. We've arrived.
I just realized we could rebrand if we ever want to, and I swear I will fight whoever steals this idea that I'm throwing out publicly. But I'm surprised it hasn't been done. Honky Tonk Hockey Talk. That is a Nashville Preds pod right there.
Yeah. Would it be literally like country music talk mixed with hockey talk, or is it just
just like Nashville? Maybe you blend them together. Maybe you dive into Cole Swindell, and then you're like, and that leads us naturally to Josi. And if you're able to bounce between country music and hockey, that's a superior trait.
There is a 100% chance, though, if you did that, there's a 100% chance that I would jokingly call it honky talk. I would have to. I would have to call it honky talk because that's a hilarious name. But I will, dude. I'll plug. This was something I was listening to this morning while we're talking about country music. Go listen to Gabe Lee's new album, Gabelee. He put it out this morning, and the dude is criminally underrated. Nashville native guy, Gabe Lee. Go listen to his new record. It's like a 9 out of 10. I endorse it fully while we're talking about country music here. Until
my wife swats my hand away from the aux cord and puts Taylor back on because she's all in. She's still going back through, going, "Oh, Charlie, you can't be doing that."
The new album, Garbaggio. Wow, it's not really that bad.
Garbaggio,
but I don't think it's bad. I've only listened.
It's boring.
I'll tell you what, a better album that was released that same day was Carly Rae Jepsen. Because, you're talking to Mr. 90% rap and hip hop, and then the rest is just a grab bag. Yeah, that Carly Rae Jepsen album, it slaps. I mean, she knows how to do pop music. She's got a niche. She knows how to do it. Makes me feel like a strong, independent woman too. So, what more can you ask for?
It's easier said than done. Like everybody, they always rag on all those bands like Imagine Dragons, Nickelback, and stuff. Those dudes sold like 100 million records or whatever, and that is not easy to do. So, yeah, they may be a joke, but they're a talented joke. So good for them. Which naturally leads us to the Preds win over the Blues last night, 6-2. They scored
very well done.
Yeah. 6 goals, 2 to the Blues. Brian, you were in the building. What did you see, and what was the most surprising part about the offensive explosion from a team that has not exactly been the most explosive team offensively to start this year?
Yeah, so they had talked all week, and and these are things that you can take with a grain of salt. When they said like the intensity level was ratcheted up in practices. The things, they were doing things a little bit differently, which you hear that, a team that's losing, you hear that kind of a thing all the time. But I think the things that we did see though were tangible actions from John Hines, where he switched up some of the personnel. So we saw a return to a line that got little over 250 or so minutes last season. Philip Forsberg with Ryan Johansson and Matt Duchene. So Mikael Granlund moved down to the second line. Cody Glass came up to center that with Nino Niederreiter. So that was the big shuffle with the forwards. And then on defense, they moved Ekholm back over to his left side, put him with Carrier again, and McDonough was on the third pair. And so those were the things that everybody kind of were looking at, and actually talked about it before the game, saying that, yes, the Granlund, Duchene, Forsberg line last season was incredible, basically record breaking. But they had at times had moved Johansson up there, and it had really worked out really well for the team, and I think their offensive, production had, was quite a bit better. And last night was almost exactly what we were expecting. So, I mean, that line finished with Philip Forsberg had 3 points on 3 assists. Matt Duchene had 3 points on 3 assists, and Ryan Johansson had a goal. So, I mean, that's 7 points right there between those 3 guys. One of them was on the power play, but when they scored, that it was the 3 of them on an odd man rush, and Joey just put it in there quite beautifully. And so that lineup combination really did kind of spark that top line, because again, you didn't see, Forsberg and Duchene didn't get on the board technically, but 3 points is no big, nothing to scoff at. And that's what you expect out of your top line.
Are you a big Sanford guy after this one?
Yeah, I mean, he looked good. I will say that his goal on that wraparound, I didn't think the angle that he had was he was going to be able to get it in. Mm-hmm. And so when I saw the puck go up and over the blocker of Thomas Greiss, I was just like, I was like, surely he didn't just lacrosse that in there, which he didn't. I think what he did, it wasn't the greatest shot. He had said after the game, he was like, yeah, it really wasn't the best, shot I could have done, but I think it hit Greiss's stick and so ramped over. So it was a nice move, powerful move. I mean, he got his guy off of him and he was able to make that tight turn. And you don't see, for a game that you kind of think about when if you're a casual hockey fan, you think about, shots like that, like the wraparounds are always really cool, but you just don't see them very much anymore. And I always get excited when you see them, because it's always just a cool, it's like driving to dunk, it's just great when you see that type of a thing. And so he got to do that against his former team. He was with them last year. And so he was excited that got to happen. And a lot of people were kind of curious, because the changes to the fourth line were, most people were kind of, I would say mildly disappointed, maybe to say the least, because that fourth line ended up being Cole Smith, Michael McCarron, and Zach Sanford. So Eeli Tolvanen was a healthy scratch, and we can talk more about that later. So people weren't really expecting much out of that group, but they came out and they did exactly what they were supposed to do too. I think between them, obviously McCarron had his goal, which was excellent. So he did great on there. Sanford had his goal, and Cole Smith had 2 points, 2 assists. So, I mean, we talked about the top line having 7 points, but, that's 4 points from your fourth line. So that's something that, again, I think this was an intentional lineup decision in the fourth line to get that size down there, which most people haven't been a huge fan of, but against the Blues, it worked. And, no fights or anything. They tried. There were a couple of times the Blues players really tried to provoke them, but Nashville didn't get any fights, which that helps.
Do you believe in Granlund on the right side now? Do you think that's where he should be?
Yeah, he wasn't always a center, and in the NHL, it's kind of dubious as to, if you look up a player's position on their own website or on the rosters, it just says like center wing, but it's really interchangeable. I mean, Johansson and Duchene are both centers technically. Mikael Granlund came as a wing, but he falls into that center role really well, just because he's kind of a playmaker. And so, yeah, I think it'll be fine. I think that, Cody Glass was okay. Towards the first couple of periods, the whole team as a whole was kind of sloppy, even though they outshot him in the first period. They were pretty sloppy. And then at the end, third period, we didn't see Cody Glass very much at all. I think maybe only like 2 shifts all third period. And they had asked him about that, Coach Hines after the game, and he had just said, well, it really wasn't much of a ability thing as much of they had matchups that they liked, which, again, we'll see. But, so Cody Glass in the top 6, a lot of people wanted to see it. He got a shot, did fine, but we just didn't see a lot of him towards the end of the game. So it'll be interesting to see where he gets slotted for Saturday's game.
Charlie, Hines said, quote, after the game, you want to try to have some lines that have some identities as best you can, and those guys came through tonight. He's speaking to you. He's trying to find identity. He's trying to please you. He's mixing things up. He's not sticking with the status quo. He is trying to get back on your good side. He is willing to go out of his comfort zone to figure this thing out for you, Charlie Burris.
I mean, I am at this point desperate for anything like this, and I was happy to see that the reason that things loosened up last night seemingly was because he actually made changes. Because it goes to my overarching point there that they needed to change stuff. Like that's the whole thing, and they brought in some new players, even if it wasn't as much as I would like to see. But they did that, and now you stuck with the same coach who wasn't a world beater, and that's okay, I guess. But then at least he's willing to do things like this. That's good. I'll give him 100% credit on that. And I mean, hey, if it works going forward, that big game tomorrow to beat Laviolette, you got something to prove, even if it's this early in the season. So I'll grant him this. I'll allow it. We'll see how it goes.
Bryan, Josi is not all that pacey. He's a very chill dude. The way he approaches the game and the way he approached his cold start, and really not playing the way that I think all of us expected Josi to play out of the gate. He said, quote, "Yeah, not too hot of a start for me, but I think sometimes it's funny in hockey. You try to focus on your game, you try to focus on the process, and I think it's all about how you feel about your game and how you're playing. Sometimes they go in, sometimes they don't. And on Thursday night, they went in and he had 3 points."
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it was something that they were really, again, you expect this guy who is thought you're going to have a 100-point scorer. You really expect him to come out the gate firing, which, is fine. But this is, again, we're now almost just under 10% of the way through the season. And so it takes a little bit of time. And when, again, Josi just kind of was absent from these games, not awful, but still not, a world beater that he normally is. But I think something kind of opened up for him. And again, like, it's great to see him, be able to play and have a 3-point game. I think that he's had 25 of those, I think, as a defenseman, which is a crazy number, really. But, him coming out and having that breakout. I mean, you look at your guys, and we talked about, like, we have the depth players, you got to stay out of the box, you've got to make better passes. But, one of the other things was the big players needed to step up, and, you go down the list, all of your expensive guys up on the top line, they did their job. Roman Josi came out there, had a 3-point game, and a great game all over the ice. Those guys stepped up as well. UC Saros was excellent, allowing those 2 goals, but he, I think he saved a goal more than expected. So, I mean, that's great. Like, he did the big guys, the guys that you're hoping to see come out there and play really strong. They kind of gave you a sense of last year's, like, fun offensive, powerhouse team, relatively rather. So
I like it. Well, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the healthy scratch. What does this mean? Is this a one-time thing, Bryan, or do you think this is something that fans should expect might be the case going forward?
Yeah, and that's an interesting one, just because it kind of came out of nowhere. I think, we didn't get an answer about it after the game. I think, honestly, a lot of it had to do with, I think, with what they were going for on that fourth line. Like, I think even with Sanford, if you took Sanford out, you've got McCarron, down there. Do you really want to put, Ellie Tolvanen down there without Cody Glass? It was not a finesse line at all. These guys are the big bruisers, and it's not, they're not going to come out there and have this many points in a game like they did, every time. So, I think that kind of factored into it a bit. But the interesting thing is right when Hines got hired a few years back, I had spoken with CJ Totoro from who at the time was writing for the New Jersey Devils website on SBN. And he had said one of the interesting things that, the players really did like Hines a lot. He was a player's coach, as they say. But one of the things that he said was kind of a criticism from fans was that he had a shorter leash with his younger players than he did with his veterans. And I remembered that the other day, and I was thinking, you look at last year and Luke Cunnin playing all 82 games. Yet you saw Tomasino and Tolvanen get healthy scratch. You see Tolvanen getting healthy scratch now after getting a chance in the top 6. Obviously Tomasino is playing pretty well down in Milwaukee, but it starts to make you think, there's there's the veterans who aren't really stepping up and doing a ton. I mean, Colton Sissons has been kind of absent. Yakov Trenin has been scoring. Tanner Jeannot is Tanner Jeannot. He's always doing what he's doing, but they're still, they had the injury to Mark Borowiecki, but would we have seen, a healthy scratch of McDonough? I don't think so, but, he kind of struggled a little bit too. And so it makes me think about, is this going to be a thing where they're going to put Tolvanen back in the lineup and maybe move Glass back down? That could happen. I would say that if Tolvanen gets back in tomorrow, it'll be because they've reshuffled that line, but I don't think they will. And so it's hard to speculate. I will say the one thing that may have been the reason is that he did shave off his mustache a couple days ago, which a lot of people, the kids 21, 22 or something like that. Like, it's hard to grow facial hair, especially when you're that young. Not everybody can do
31.
Yeah, I know. Trust me, it took me about 32 years. So, and this is barely qualifies. So, yeah, I mean, that's the other thing, not everybody can be like Phil. And unfortunately, I think maybe that's part of it. Maybe he's being punished. John Hines said, listen, if you got hair that grows on your head, you better cherish it because, things can end up a lot like me. So you don't want to do that. And maybe that's the punishment. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to watch and see, if he does that, because that's the kind of thing that fans are going to be like, what's going on now? Tolvanen's out, Tomasino's still in the AHL. What's going on?
Yeah, I was gonna say, should the move to put Tomasino in the AHL, and now he's kind of shining for the Admirals, should this be the last straw to finally have David Poile be fired? Go, Bryan.
Yes, I think so.
That's what I was hoping. That's what I was hoping for.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think between that and seeing the prices for drinks in Bridgestone after the 5-game losing streak, you think they'd put a discount. So those are the two things I think, because he definitely is in charge of that. So I will say though, and if we've got a little bit of time, I did want to highlight one thing from yesterday, and we haven't heard much about him from anybody except from me, at 1:00 in the morning last night. Matthias Ekholm had a fantastic game. He was back on his left side. I mean, his numbers were, I'm going to pull this up because it was pretty ridiculous. So again, he, on the score sheet, it wasn't anything, no points, only had 2 shots on goal, but while he was on the ice, he was on the ice for 22 shot attempts for by the Predators and just 4 attempts against in 16 minutes at 5-on-5. That, just 9 shots to 3, no goals, no goals allowed, no goals scored. But that's, to play 16 minutes and to go, 22-4, that's shut down defense. And, Carrier has always complimented his game because Carrier can be that more of a Roman Josi type, moving defenseman. And Ekholm's gotten a lot better too. But, they got him back on his side, his natural side, what he's been playing his entire career. And you could tell a difference. I mean, he was much better all night, with where he was at on his assignments. And so it'll be interesting because if he continues to do that, what do they do? Where do they put McDonough? Do they move, one of Carrier or Fabro down, or they put, do they keep a really expensive $6 million third pairing defenseman? It'll be interesting. It's, I just think that Matthias Ekholm looked a lot like regular Matthias Ekholm last night. So,
Saturday night, Charlie. Washington Capitals at home. What are you looking for out of the Preds on Saturday? What are you most interested in this matchup on Saturday?
Winning would be nice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a good question. I mean, just more effort from Hines to fix what's been wrong, clean play, competent play at all levels with every line, just the things that equal winning hockey, frankly, because I cannot lie. Those losses all in a row and most of them just being inexcusable, spooked me for sure. And I just go like, is it going to be more of that or more of what we saw last night where you're getting good contributions from guys you weren't even expecting, and some of the changes that the coach made, those are working, or is it going to be the garbage we watched in that losing streak? So it's really that. Can they stay consistent and actually do it night over night, and can you not get embarrassed by your prior coach who left, and you just don't want to see that guy succeed, right? You want the worst for him. I hope he fails. No, I have no hard feelings for Peter Laviolette. He was a great coach while he was here in Nashville, but I mean, you do. I am serious in that. You want to beat that guy. You want to say, like, we're still good. We're all right without you, because I certainly haven't felt overall that we upgraded, frankly. And so at least do that. At least beat the last guy. That'd be nice.
What about you, Brian? What are you most looking forward to outside of just beating Peter Laviolette?
Yeah, that's going to be kind of the thing. So had last night's game gone differently and they'd lost, I think this game would have taken on just a massive amount of importance, because again, yes, losing this game is just a game in the season. And, I think that one of the things that the team had said is they'd much rather have a losing streak like this happen now rather than later down the road when they've got momentum, which is fine, if they can do that. But yeah, you want to definitely beat the guy because, this guy's coming back in there. Most of the fan base was pretty much in agreement on it was time to move on. But if you've got this guy come in and, your coach can't beat him, and the coach has already been taking some heat early in this season, that's a rough look. And so I'm sure that they're going to want to really, push for that. But, can Nashville continue doing what they did? I mean, they're going to have a team can be physical, the guys like Wilson and guys like that over in Washington, are they going to be able to keep up with that? Because they haven't been playing teams like, the Capitals. They're 4-4 this season, but they've got more offensive power. They've got a guy defenseman that can kind of match up with a guy like Roman Josi, so Tarasenko still, or not Tarasenko, I'm sorry, John Carlson. Sorry, on defense, he was, the guy who came in second to Roman Josi when he won the Norris. And so if they can continue to look like they did last night, and which kind of, resembled a lot more the team we saw last season, maybe we can sit here and think that last night was, not just an outlier, and that's something that we can come back to expect with the team. And so it's going to be really interesting because they can't, penalties are going to have to be, they're going to have to be much better. They're ninth in the league for penalty killing, which is great. That's what you want to see. But they're still 28th. They got a power play goal last night, but I think that's their third on the season. And you can't mess around because you've got Ovechkin just sitting there. He's going to be good for probably a goal every other game you play against him, if not more. And so they can't afford to make those mistakes and give him a chance to do it. Because, Nashville took a really early deficit last, I think minute 7 into the game. They were down 1-0. And then they allowed the tying goal, and they came right back and scored again. And so can they respond like that all game? That's going to be the most interesting thing.
4-4. We'll see who goes over 500 in this series.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. The power play percentage is just still quite alarming for the Preds.
It drives me nuts because it kind of reminds me of before, they brought in the assistant coach, Brad Lambert, and one of the things that drove me nuts about the power play under Laviolette was there was just no movement on the power play. So basically the Blues last night, they were sitting there in that diamond right in front of the net, just kind of shifting, and they were allowing all the passes to the perimeter. So they had, Nashville would have 3 guys in the perimeter and 2 guys, parked in front of the net, but they weren't moving. They were just kind of sitting there trying to kind of wedge their way open. And so they had to resort to, taking point shots and hoping for rebounds, which didn't work. And it hasn't worked all season. But they created turnovers when they broke out, on the power play last night. And it was just 3 guys coming in, controlled entry, got in the zone, passed the puck around, went straight to the net, and they scored. And it's kind of like, that's the way you do it. There's your template. You can't sit there, and they're going to give you those perimeter passes all the time. Like, they're going to let Roman Josi shoot, have like 7 shots on goal just in the power play because, chances are that's not going to turn into a goal. So, they've got to do better on that, because I don't know. This was Hines, I'd heard a lot about Hines had been better about getting guys in motion, keeping guys moving, and, creating moving screens. I just haven't seen that a lot on the power play. And there's too much talent on that power play for it to be that, what's the word I want to use? Impotent residence right now.
I don't know if there's anything more frustrating than that with this team over a number of years. I mean, because I remember with Laviolette, didn't they fire the guy before they fired Laviolette? Didn't they fire the coach that was over the power play or something, trying to fix it, and didn't ever really get fixed? And then now, I mean, with this team, you got You got Philip Forsberg, one of the best scorers in the league. You got Matt Duchene, who's one of the best facilitators in the league and one of the best scorers in the league. And along with that, when he's at the top end of his ability, Johansson is another great dude, and just all of these guys, and you can't score. Like, what's happening? What is it? And why can you not, for years now, get that figured out? Because it just feels like, to me, if you got the right strategist in there overseeing that element of the game, there's just, I don't think that you could convince me. There's not somebody out there that could get this power play to work, like strategically. Yeah.
And it's
surely,
funny,
right?
It's really funny because last season that was their best season in franchise history. 24%, which
it's what saved them, kind of.
It helped,
and now we're back. Like, oh man, that is incredibly frustrating. It's deja vu. I mean, you're going back to those days with Laviolette where you were like, how do we have these guys and this is what the power play looks like? What are we out here doing? And that's, it's frustrating. So maybe, hopefully, different lines, different looks. I don't know, whatever they got to do, but that will help this team immensely if they could get that figured out.
I like it. Trivia as we wrap up here on a Friday. Bryan Bastin, what do you have for us this week?
Yeah. Okay. So this one, it shouldn't be too difficult, but Roman Josi had 3 points last night in the win against St. Louis. Kind of got him off his slump because he had only had a single point so far up to before last game. Sorry. But now he sits 20 points away from taking the franchise lead in points scored. He currently sits at 546. The person in the lead has 566. Who is that person that's all-time leading scorer for the Nashville Predators?
Is it Paul Kariya?
Nope. That's a good guess.
Paul Kariya. Would that be?
He wasn't here long enough.
I was going to say.
Yeah, that's true.
He was at 26th with 161 points.
Yeah.
I'll give you another hint. He had passed last season. He passed Martin Erat. So it's not, because
he was the answer to the last question.
I mean,
he passed Martin Erat. It's not Forsberg, is it?
No, Forsberg is actually, I think, fourth with 476. He'll actually pass Martin Erat here within 5 points.
I have no idea.
I'm not a great Predators historian, clearly.
Yeah, it's a guy who played 956 games for Nashville.
Wow, so clearly it's somebody we should know.
That's okay though, because I'm the same way.
Was it like somebody way back? Because I always went to games when I was a kid, but I didn't know all of the players and all of the. Because I don't remember anybody recently that was just
Ekholm.
No. He shares a name with our current general manager.
With the general
David.
I have no idea.
David Legwand.
Oh,
yeah. I knew as soon as I said it, you'd be like, "Oh no!"
I should. Yeah, I should have known that. That's dumb.
It happened, but yeah, no, he was getting started. He played a game in the inaugural season, and then was there all the way up until 2014. So 956 games, and so Josi, is
so long.
Yeah, Josi is about 180 games behind, but is about it's only 20 points behind him for taking over the lead. So I mean that's really impressive and speaks to what Roman Josi does, because you say he's an offensive defenseman, but to put yourself in the position to be able to score that many points when you're the quarterback, you're back there taking those point shots. He's special. I mean, Roman Josi is just a special player.
Josi has a similar feeling right now to me to Derrick Henry with the Titans, where you have one of the premier dudes who, especially last season, is in the peak of his career. And what are you getting with that right now? Titans losing in the first round, Predators losing in the first round. There's some serious parallels there that it's tough to watch, because you just go man, you got one of the dudes, and you lose not only losing in the first round, but getting annihilated by the team that ended up winning the cup. So
I mean, look at Washington though. They for years Ovechkin could not win a cup, and he was just one of the greatest ever.
That's true.
And it took him a while. So, it's just one of those that the fact that I get to watch this generational player and talk to him, several times a week is awesome, just because that's a guy who's going to be in the NHL Hall of Fame. And so it's going to be really great. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. I always enjoy looking at the team records because last season they broke an absurd number of like franchise records last year. And so I've always interested in watching that.
I'm almost surprised how the Predators have had so much success making the playoffs all of those times in a row and all of those things. But the records aren't, when you look at the records on some of these other teams that have been around so much longer, it's like they're pretty not unimpressive. I mean, it's always impressive when you break a record, but just relative to the whole of NHL hockey, the amount of success the Predators have, I feel like it doesn't meet up with how easy some of these records were to break. Does that make sense?
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. But they weren't easy to break, but they, just like the Predators, had success, even though they didn't have some dudes ripping off 100-point seasons and stuff like that. So I don't know.
What was also the Preds' first pick ever?
I think
all-time scoring leader and first pick ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again,
he's also got a
one.
head 8.5 hat. No question. His head is gigantic. A gigantic skull on this man. He's wearing an 8.5, like an 8 1/8 at the very minimum.
I'm just making myself a note. I'm just making myself a note to talk to the equipment managers at Bridgestone next time to see if they can give me, because that's the type of thing that they would love to tell. Be like, oh my god, his head's massive. So
yeah, ask him about that.
Because speaking of people with massive heads, and my 7 and 7 3/4, like it's hard out there when you've got a big noggin.
Look, I was a 7. I think I'm a 7 3/8 now. I think I'm 3/8. My late grandfather was an 8. He had a gigantic head. Yeah. What are you, Brian? You said you have a big head. It's not near an 8, is it? You said 7 5/8?
7 3/4 or 7 7/8 sometimes.
Yeah, you're not there. You're not quite there.
I battled the hair monster. That's the biggest. My head is pretty big, but it's I have all of this.
Charlie, we get it. You have hair.
It takes up a lot of space under there.
My hair
that's true.
Congratulations.
My hair gets me longer than this. It becomes anime hair real fast, and it's not a good look.
Yeah, this is why I wear a hat all the times, because this is unruly, and I'm too lazy to go get a haircut. I really should, but
that's your cross to bear, Charlie Burris. I feel so bad for you that you have all of this hair to not know what to do with. It's such a shame that you have to wear a hat.
And it's awesome that
tough life.
His evenings are freed up from watching Predators games, so that's also pretty good.
True.
Good life.
Yeah. That is a good life. Charlie Burris, what can the good folks check out from you over at A to Z Sports this week before the Tennessee Volunteers kick the shit out of the Kentucky Wildcats tomorrow night?
It's a big game. Put up multiple podcasts this week. Did a little update yesterday about the kid that got arrested he plays in Tennessee's defense, and we did a little update video about Jalen McCullough, because the news that just came out that he was cleared to play, but he probably isn't going to play. And then we talked to Ron Slay, Tennessee basketball legend, on Wednesday, and that interview was he's such a cool dude. I can't suggest that enough. And then halftime post game, I'm going to be obviously A to Z Sports YouTube. Go over there, subscribe, and we do a halftime post game show for every Tennessee game, and it's a big one. Got to get past the Mildcats, the Kentucky Mildcats. Am I right, folks?
Very good.
Yeah, but seriously, I think it's not going to be an easy game, although I think it will be ultimately a fun game that Tennessee wins. And do that blackout. How sweet are those black uniforms?
So nice.
Oh my god!
I think it is going to be an easy game. I look, as
I
someone
hope so.
who
I really hope so. The possibility's there.
I think I was the only one on this podcast who predicted the Vols over Alabama. I think I was the only one to say blowout over LSU. I don't think this is where Tennessee loses. I think they blow them out. I think this is a terrible matchup for Kentucky. It's a terrible matchup for Kentucky.
I said 11-point win. I said Kentucky covers.
Oh, you're right at the line.
Yeah. I'm just worried about injuries.
Yeah, you got to preserve everybody for that next week. Like we as fans can look forward to that Georgia game. Like
my galaxy brain is I want to tank the Georgia game. Like I want to drop that one. Avoid the SEC championship game. Let Georgia and Alabama play again.
Let
Tennessee
Alabama
finished
win.
11-1, and their only losses to the number 1 team in the country. They're in the playoff in those circumstances.
Georgia would have to win the SEC championship.
Yeah, and I think they would. I think they're better than Alabama this year.
Because that would give Alabama 2 losses. The 2 loss teams never made it into the playoffs. So Tennessee would kind of be the heir apparent there. Although TCU has to lose. Got to get TCU to lose.
I think they're going to lose. I don't think this is going to be a 12-0 TCU.
And almost Oregon might
13-0 actually.
Because Oregon
got blasted by Georgia in week 1.
You got to make sure that you don't get blasted by Georgia.
Yeah, exactly. Like close. If you lose to Georgia by like a 1 touchdown, a field goal or something, and that's your only loss all year, Tennessee's a playoff team.
Yeah.
That's such a weird thing to think about. That's so weird to think about right now. That's just, I never would have expected it. But
feeling like 98. Hendon Hooker born in 1998. People forget.
God, 24 born in 1998. That is.
We're getting
folks.
Old. Yeah, I don't. There are players on the roster right now, and you see it, and you're like, Nico was born in what year? What year was Nico Iamaleava born?
2004, wouldn't it be?
Yeah,
it's just like
less than that, 2005, because he's only 17. He's a senior now, so I mean,
it's just like when Dallas drafted Cedric Wilson's kid a couple years back, and I was like, oh, really? Like,
bro,
like that's that's crazy. But
Joey Porter Jr. playing for Penn State, and you're like, Joey Porter was not that okay. All right, Asante Samuel was the first one for me where it really hit me.
I
had a moment like that. I feel like I might have told this already on here, but went to the 9/11 museum a few months ago in New York City. We were standing in line, and there was a father with his adult son, clearly 17, 18, 19, and he was explaining to the kid, like, no, on that day, it was this and this and this. And I was like, that kid's like an adult. How does he not know what 9/11 is? And then you think about it, you're like, he was 3 years out. On September 11, 2001. And I'm like, oh, God, I'm getting old. That is because it's like
people
it's
have
like the
no
cornerstone historical event of our lives.
Yeah.
And this kid was like, huh, what is 9/11? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we've lived I think if my math's right, like we've lived more of our life after that than we did before. So,
for sure. I thought it was in 5th grade.
Yep.
Yeah. 5th grade.
5th grade. Freshman in high school. Jeez. Anyways, I also did it in Japan, and it was the next. Yeah, but that's whatever. Well, what an awesome. This is going to be a great lead into what I was getting ready to plug.
All right, moving from 9/11 to Brian's. You got it, Brian. What would you like to plug?
So good. No. So I'm going to be at the game tomorrow. We're going to have coverage with Renegades Puck on the Forecheck. Very excited. We've got some movement. And again, we have just posted our call for contributors. So we are looking for people, any experience level, whether you are a journalism student in college and you want to get your start, or if you're, like me, a 31-year-old, dad, single dad at the time, who barely watched hockey. You can do it. We'd love to have you. We've got a bunch of applicants already. We're really excited to kind of go through some of those. Like with a lot of these, it's not going to be, most of us will all start unpaid for a little while. So, the onus isn't really as hard for you guys, but, we've got a lot of people who are really passionate. I mean, we had 7 people sign up or, apply just within the first couple hours. So, please get out there. If you have any questions, you want help, you want advice, you want me to check over something for you, more than happy to do it. We want to have you guys out in the team since Charlie's folks stole Sean from us. We're calling up our guys from the AHL. We're getting our new guys in, our prospects, and I'm really excited for the people we've already got, who've already been there. So make sure you check that out. It should be pinned on the homepage at ontheforecheck.com. We'd love to have you out there.
There you go. Brian, Charlie, thank you as always for the time, and you guys have a great weekend, and I will talk to y'all next week.
All right, go Preds.